Hola, chicas. Welcome to Encuentra's Your Voice podcast, showcasing Latinas as they share their journey from ancestry to authenticity, discovering that aha moment of self-love in the cultura and the thriving success that follows. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, here with you every Wednesday at 5 p.m. sunny California Pacific time, and reveling with our vibrant guests every week. Full-length conversations that will have you cheering for our comunidad. That single aha moment that changed their life forever, illuminating the importance and impact of the Hispanic and Latina community in our society. Hola, chicas. This is a somber one. Definitely a somber day, but I do feel positive. This one's weird. Felt it last night, saw where it was going. More like I'm not angry because I spent all that anger in the last 4 years with Trump and 4 years with my brothers, the Trumpets. And I've had time, but it's been a lot of time. So take whatever time you need. Take your time to heal. Find the space to feel safe, to feel comforted, and to feel like being you again. For all the countries that join the conversation over social media, we are grateful. We're grateful for your support and your encouragement, and really sorry about having you on the sidelines to watch this really discouraging following. It is not just another day, so really create space for your emotions, your peace of mind, physical well-being today. Check in with yourself and remember that no one has power over you. You have the freedom to give to yourself in whatever way you feel today. Honestly, I would love to have everyone just over sitting in the sunny patio and having some cafecito, not saying a thing, just taking it all in. Honestly, it is disheartening to see that Latino men lean heavy towards Trump, walking away from the rights of women, immigrants, our LGBTQ comunidad, to embrace something other, aligning with something they think they are. I went around and around on this as to whether I should even release this podcast today. But I tell you, this is exactly where the evil out in this world wants us to be. To be hiding, afraid, unable to act on our own beliefs, and instead, stay silent. And that's not what this podcast is all about. Here we amplify Latina voices, amplify the voices of advocates that see the power and brilliance of Latinas and unify to support each other. And in this space of unity and kindness, your place in the world may come to light. Our energy gets renewed and hope thrives again. But whatever your power emotion is today, let it roar, even if it's roaring in that silence. No one can take your power away from you, even now. So today, who better to join us than Afro-Latina filmmaker Vega Montañez, writer and director of The Burden of 9 Lives that premiered last Friday, November 1, on Prime Video. Here is a man whose infectious laugh and faith in a more compassionate humanity bring light to the darkness of the shadows that you may wander into today. His Dominican roots and maternal upbringing are catalysts for his brilliant views of life that soften this hard exterior that sometimes we take on. Now, if you recall, Vega had been on our show last December, and there we manifested the possibility that his latest film would reach a wider audience through streaming platforms. I can't take all the credit, but I'm going to take some for manifesting this to the universe. The story that is a full-length movie and has received 12 awards out of the 20 film festivals it was shown at. 12 awards across all parts of the film, from Best Movie to Best Costume, Best Producer, and Best Actress. Everyone played such a big role and were recognized in this movie. Now, Vega did set out to make a Hollywood action film based on the crime factions of big cities, but alas, his Afro-Latino storytelling comes bursting through with compassion and love. Love. Yes, love. What started out as an action film became a deeply moving romance with an ending that will have you in tears. Maybe the perfect conduit for relieving all the pent-up emotions you may be storing from the build-up to yesterday's election day. But when you're feeling up for some action again, catch the movie, The Burden of 9 Lives on Prime Video. Until then, listen to Vega Montañez as he guides us through the making of the film and the compassionate curiosity that leads to such potent scripts of human empathy. Welcome back, Vega, to Encuentra's Your Voice podcast, which when we had you on last year was still LifeLinks podcast, but we are all under one umbrella right now. And so happy to have you back, especially under these circumstances. How you been?
It's been a crazy journey, but we're here. The movie is out and in the wild for people to watch, so it's really exciting. We're here.
Yeah, massive congratulations. I did take a little of your glory and say, just by circumstances, 2 Latina filmmakers that have been on the podcast in the last 12 months are now showcasing premieres of their movies.
Look at that.
Manifestation works here, people. We manifested it. We wanted it to happen. When we send these out on the airwaves, it goes straight up to the powers that be, I think. So let's get down on this. This is really exciting. This is happening. We are recording on Halloween. We did not come in costume, but we should have. We're recording on Halloween, and this exciting event is happening tomorrow, November 1. So let's dive in on what has transpired for your filmmaking career in the last year since we've talked to you.
Since the last time we spoke, it's been a lot of communication, relationship building, networking, just a lot of moving parts to make sure that all of the marketing ideas we have in place can work, and just doing everything we can to really get the film in front of as many people as possible to just keep pushing the boundaries. Growth for all of us.
Yes, the film we are specifically talking about today, The Burden of 9 Lives, which you had put through many film festivals and done extremely well over the last year. We did super well
at the film festivals.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What was it like to put them out there?
It was an interesting experience because there was such a high combination of digital film festivals and in-person film festivals. And there were we won so many across the globe, which was really interesting to me. Like, we did incredibly well in Barcelona. Those additional validations, especially from the Latino community, was super exciting because it's not so much that there aren't a lot of projects out there. It's that they don't really get promoted and spotlighted heavily. And I think that's the big focus that we have right now, is just making sure that whether people love the film or hate the film, at least they know it exists. Because there's way too many films out there that people just don't know exist.
That is what definitely you brought to light for me last year. And since we've had you on, we had 3 more Latino filmmakers on.
I listened to 2 of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, it was really surprising. You opened my eyes. You totally opened my eyes to the idea that, the films are there. It's just that we don't know about them. We don't have access to them.
Right.
But as of tomorrow, November 1, we will have access to The Burden on 9 Lives. Let's talk about that big centering.
I really want to hear some of your thoughts because you had a chance to see it before some of the audience. So I'm really excited to just see what you think.
Oh, great. Let's do it because, I was so honored. I'm so excited. I love the Latina creatives. I am your person. Anyone out there, I am your person, the creatives. And I was so grateful that you sent me the link for the preview so that I could watch it in advance. And I finally feel like on the other side. But I have to admit, now I am delicate when it comes to the tone of this movie. And I had to wait for a reinforcements to watch it with me. So it took a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But having done that, I'm not going to spoiler alert it for anybody. The ending. Okay. I was in tears at the ending. Not
Success.
Yes. Oh, is that what you were going for? It's
Yes.
a freaking love story. After all of this that we're watching, there are a lot of times I closed my eyes. A lot of times I was like, come on, what's going to happen? It just keeps you on the edge of your seat in following Jimmy Diaz through his motivational reasons for acting out. And I did not see the end coming. And I love that. I just sat in it for a minute. So overall, now I want to watch it again. Now I want to watch it again, which I do not do with movies.
There is no bigger compliment than that.
Yeah, the only other movie I have watched multiple times is Pulp Fiction. So that's who you're in company with. Yeah, I do not watch movies over again.
That is a very high standard. I will stick with that for a while.
I was thinking about how would I review this, and I think that was the number one kapow. I think the filming scenes were gorgeous.
Big credit to my camera team.
There were some beautiful shots. Even like the one I was mesmerized with, I think the timing of it in the movie is what really set it. But when he's swirling a drink at the bar and it's this beautiful amber close up.
My God.
and you're just thinking, oh, what is he thinking? What is going to happen next? Little moments like that were so profound. That was, that was stunning. And then I have to say, being the delicado that I am when it comes to these type of thriller, action, it was so tastefully done. It was so tastefully done. And I really want to attribute that to the cultura a little bit, because I really feel we're people forward, that we care for people, and that the action that's happening in this film is part of the story. It really is needed to tell the story, versus in typical films, it's usually used for an effect, to shock you and to harm you almost, and to upset you, rather than incorporate it into part of the story. So I really value that in you, because otherwise I'd have a hard time watching it.
It's so interesting you point that out, because it's one of the things that I put thought into, but not so much in a like contrarian perspective, but just for me perspective. This is just how I enjoy things, right? I am someone who enjoys a grotesque or gruesome action scene in a film, right? But that's not always what I'm looking for. It's not always necessary. With this, for me, it was a culmination of things, right? One part of it is, how do we create really interesting action pieces that set themselves apart without being this like huge shock moment where that's the only reason people talk about it, right? Like they're just talking about the action because of the shock value, and they're not actually talking about the action that took place. So that was one element of it. And then on the other element is the full transparency part, where budget puts us in positions where we control some of these things differently, right? So we don't have the budgets for these elaborate prosthetics where we can do these crazy stunt effects, even if we extremely wanted to, right? Like if there was, there's only one moment in the film where I think of, and when I watch it back, I'm like, maybe there we could have done a little more effect, just because of the gunshot impact that we're showing as just a general like anatomy thing. It just sells it more in that perspective. But even the way it's done, like it doesn't bother me that it's not there. So it's very interesting to hear it like acknowledged in that way, and it makes it feel more valuable that we took the time to do that.
I felt it in the film, and this is a full-length film, almost 2 hours, and so it has time to really run the story, and it takes you a minute. At least me, it took me a minute, and this is what I love again about Latina filmmakers out there. I really, really value the storytelling point of view, because it took me a minute to come off my trained brain of expecting what it should be, of what a typical American film would be. So it took me a good 20, 25 minutes, especially because the action starts like, whoo, right off the bat, to allow myself to relax into the story. And I think, and once I relaxed into the story, then it's like you say, no, I let the story play out rather than anticipating any kind of shock effect. And
Right.
it was beautiful. That was fun. That was beautiful. And so tell me where in your storyline you wrote the script.
Mhm.
Yes. And it comes from a Latino point of view. How did you create this storyline? What was the core focus for you?
So I think one of the biggest focuses with this story, and it's really fun to talk about because like when I talk about it with the crew, we always joke about the idea that we failed, right? Because the original intention for this film was to go into it and say, to this point as a team, we haven't done anything that is, for lack of a better term, super commercialized, right? Like all of our films have some sort of theme to them or some sort of messaging. They're a little bit more like traditionally indie drama where they go more into the conversations and humanity of it, because in most indie spaces, they don't have the budgets for all the intense action stuff. So for us, it
Okay.
was, I'm going to write this script and we're going to make a super action heavy movie, right? Just make it like you said, a very Americanized action film. But then as we were filming, just who we are as filmmakers naturally took over. So we ended up in this space where the messaging that I did put in there, right? Because even though I knew I was going for a very action heavy film, I like being able to talk about things. So there are some messages in there, right? One of my favorite parts now, because I get the same reaction from so many people with the romance element, right? The conversation piece there, although it's very shallow, is like, what is the human connector that drives people together? If you're looking at the scenario from an outside perspective, there's no reason these people should fall in love. There's really no reason she should continue this conversation past the check-in. So what is it that drives people together in that way? How do people deal with those emotions as they start to come? We see Jimmy very active and hostile, but as the movie kind of slows down, we see him trimming down just a little bit as more connection is building with Pauline. So all of those elements that come into play. And then of course, like how does Jimmy's actions and his life affect who Pauline is as a person and the choices she's going to make? And then the biggest underlying message that I think, because we were so focused on making an action movie, we didn't really put in a heavy follow line for, was the police conversation, right? When you're looking at police officers, there's not only is there a difference in personality types where we have some police who are just blatantly racist and we have some police who are actually trying to protect their community. We also have the dynamic of just career, where someone at the start of their career is going to be much more eager to do the thing and get the jobs done, while someone closer to the end of their career might be more family conscious, might be more experienced and understanding of the impact that policing has on people, right? They've seen the damage they can make, right? Like they've seen arresting someone and how arresting the father might impact the family even worse than just leaving him out, right? Like those different elements of it. So we didn't create a super heavy through line for that, but those elements are there every time the detectives are having a conversation. That's what their energy is supposed to represent. One is, I've lived this. I've experienced every part of this job, and I fully understand this is a job. When I take my uniform off, I need to disconnect from this. Then you have the eager detective who's, I need to spend every waking hour solving this case because it's the only way I'll get recognized. Right? And those are the different dynamics that just exist in a workforce, and they would still apply to a workforce that we need to think very heavily on how things work in.
Yeah. No, that was that's very interesting. It's really provocative, especially at this time and day when it comes to the police and their interaction in communities, especially communities of color. And it's very palpable in the movie. And it does make you bristle. Was it Detective Nelson? He did make you bristle like, oh no, what's he going to do? Because he's just so in your face. It was surprising to see Detective Henderson back down and keep him at bay, because that's not something we're familiar with. We have not seen that relationship recently in the communities. I want to bring up a point right with this because it's pertinent. I was going to bring it up anyway, relative to the police and the detectives. They're two detectives, we should say. They're not police. They're They're two detectives. And this is really interesting. And it speaks to why we need diversity out there in everything we do. It's not so that we are shown on screen, people. It's because of our point of view, our experiences, and how we view the world. We're talking about it the next day. It was me and my husband. We're talking about it the next day. And of course, I'm just like, about the love story element. And he brings up the detectives and he says, wow, yeah, he cast really different characters, different actors in all in his roles. And that detective Nelson, oh, here it comes. What detective would look like that? He should have had a short crew cut and a tight suit. And I just went, in the American society films of the people who have been in charge for the last 100 years, yes. But no, right? But no. And that was so on point to why we are talking here today.
It was supposed to allude a little bit to the idea that, and maybe this might be stereotypical now that I think about it in a not great way, but it was supposed to also allude to the idea of single man versus family man, right? Like family man,
yes,
no matter how hard he's working, he has a wife and kids, right? There's a support team there. So even if he is working himself to the bone, his wife is the support, right? She's not going to let him leave the house looking crazy because that's her husband. Like, forget being a police officer. You're not leaving the house looking crazy. Right?
Yeah. No,
while Nelson is still developing as a man, right? So he's still that person who, if we were to see his home, we'd probably see a very chaotic environment, right? So like reflecting those different things on camera is what we tried to work through, because we did give a lot of thought to wardrobe for this film, because that's usually the critique that we get.
I like that. I like that.
And we got a lot less critiques this time.
Mission accomplished. Maturing into how to portray through costume. That's why they have costume awards in the Oscars, right? They really carry a movie. But let's get back to the main story, because I just love the main story. It starts off with Jimmy Diaz and with his cousins, his auntie, very familial opening scene. Very loving, very kind. Well, not quite opening scene, but very loving, very kind. And I love the power of the tia. I love the power in like knowing, having that witchy power, sixth sense of I know something's up, and calling him out on it. Again, very cultural, very fun and on point. And yeah, you feel like, yep, there's matriarchy.
That's my family experience. My grandmother, my mom, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. They know I'm going to do it. For better, or if it's a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't matter. They just have an intuition that I'm about to do something. And I really love the way Hillary was able to bring that to life. Like she really brought that energy to the table. We're like, yeah, no, that's it right there. That's the look.
The look, right? The look. Like, she just calls it out. And they know. I love the playfulness. I love the love. And then he goes on in the movie and things really start happening. Not good things start happening. And the storyline starts. Where did you develop that storyline? The interaction with getting caught up in the power struggle of criminal acts in the city. How did you develop that storyline? Because Jimmy is really an innocent person.
Right.
And he's an innocent, really kind, loving person. Should I be a movie critic? Okay.
He's a good guy.
He's a really good guy, but he gets caught up in something really big. And I'm wondering if he realized it's even bigger than he ever thought. How did you develop that storyline?
I think you just nailed it, right? I think that one of the there's a lot of things that I think when we talk about crime in our communities gets overlooked, right? By the people who don't look like us because they don't understand it. So one of those elements is that piece of, and I've always said this, right? Like sometimes the thing that happens to you now is not because of the decision you just made. It's because of the decision you made 30 decisions ago. And you're not even aware of it, right? So that's what I was trying to reflect, right? Especially in major cities. And some of it is touching on not exact experiences, but like creating a similar experience to things that I've had, right? Where there's been moments where you don't realize the connections and links between people that you know, because you don't see those other links ever, right? There's never a reason for it. So I myself have been in situations where, because of situation X, I'm now standing in front of person Y that I never even realized lived in the same city as us. You understand?
Right.
So
Right.
that's really what I was trying to sell, the idea of like our
Love that.
communities, for better or worse, are so connected that it's, and I try to use it as a warning for people that get into street life. It's like, between the culture of who we are as people and technology, it's not hard to find someone, right? And that's what Russell's
Mm.
character represents as the king of the city, right? It's the representation of whether we're talking about a good person or a bad person who's connected. It takes less than 20 minutes to find someone if they really wanted to, right? And
Ooh.
that's his power. He represents, in a weird way, like the government force, right? Like the all-seeing force of just society. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter how little you think your situation is, how personal you think this is, every decision you make affects millions of other people, even if you don't realize it.
Oh, wow. Oh, sit in that a minute. That's really powerful. And something we
Crazy from an action movie, right?
because you're so profound. You are very, I said it a year ago. I don't know if anyone said it since, but you're very brilliant. You're really intelligent. And yeah, the movies go deep. And that's what I love about this movie is it brings out that depth because you don't have the shock factor distracting you away from the story. It
Right.
allows you to really sink into the story, evaluate the characters. I didn't think about that nuance, but it creeps me up. Oh, no. This is what makes me
Right.
want to go off
And
the grid.
it's sprinkled throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
The connection in the beginning that sparks the whole war between Jimmy and Gabriel, right? Then there's down the road, some of the people he interacts with who get in touch with Gabriel at the drop of a dime. So there's so many of these different little links that just
Yeah.
are, for me, constant reminders, like everywhere you go. And again, like part of it comes from my own experience, where between the relationships my parents had in the communities, my mom, my grandmother had in the communities, my grandfather.
The film has got a crime element to it. It's got the hardware that goes with the crime element. And it has the mentality that goes with the crime element. I feel it had a Godfather-esque vibe to it in the sense that we can't give it away for everyone. But and there's vying factors
Very mafioso.
involved. Yes, there's a little bit of vying for power that goes on, right? And yet, even with all of that, you do sink into the characters as to the whys and the hows. And even the script itself, the conversations that they have as people, that doesn't happen outside the comunidad in that way. I feel like they are having moments of actual conversations and respect. It does lend itself back to the old culture of having respect with someone you're vying with and holding human.
Even in the scariest way, for me personally, right? Like even in the scariest way, it's still a modern day culture, right? Like when the criminal activity we get the privilege of hearing about on the news are the messy idiots, right? Like they're not the people who are actually being effective, right? Like the ones who are being effective, they are operating in this pseudo respect business world where they understand, no, I can't just go on a killing spree of all of the other people doing business in the city. Like we have to have this weird, like, form of civility in this illegal underbelly where, these, even when you think about like mafias or territories, right? Like for us, we're like, oh, you guys are idiots. Why you're fighting over blocks? But in the depth of what's happening, these are route ways, these are travel, these are patterns, these are different, like, these are actual product zones, these are retail shops. Like, so there's so much more that goes into it. And I think, again, like speaking to the idea of how do we continue improving our communities and societies, the most shocking stuff tends to be real.
The women in the movie really are the power in the positions. They carry all the main roles because for me, I'm looking at the Tia and then the doctors and Pauline, the nurse, and they all carry this gravitas of they're holding the men at bay. Yes, the men are out here doing their thing and they're doing their power vibes, whether they're the detectives or the criminals. And yet it's the women who are holding everything steady, both in society and in relationship.
Society heavily, right? So that's part of, for me, the way I just like to tell stories. I like to always have this kind of clear line of what is society and what isn't society, right? So all of the criminal activity and everything that's happening, they have their own subset for society, right? But societal standards is what's happening in the real world, right? So the real world are the doctors, right? Yeah, they're on lunch break, but look at the conversation they're having, right? Whether it's through jokes or through actual like real moments, but they're having these conversations that anyone listening, you could sit back and be like, yeah, no, this sounds like a place I'd be cool living around. We see all of these natural, true human characteristics. And then with Pauline, she's the only character in the film that transitions. Like she plays on both sides of the line, right? And that's intentional.
Yes.
The same way there's very few women in the film because I wanted the women to have those pivotal, like you see them and they mean so much versus being like, there's all these disposable women that pop up at here and there. Like every woman has a significant role they play. And with Pauline, hers is that pivotal role of trying to understand where you fit in society, right? Like at what point is it okay for you to believe something different than what the rules say? Is it ever okay? Like in those, that was what I was playing with her character. I think Ashley brought even more to the table just with her own performance and the things like that she was able to really bring to life from the writing.
Oh, yeah. No, Pauline is definitely in my tribe. Please. I think Pauline. I want a Pauline.
Pauline is in my corner for sure.
Girl, absolutely. I mean, literally has your back. Whatever it takes, Pauline's got your back. And I love that. You should have some merch. We need merch on Pauline because that...
We need some more Pauline merch for sure.
Yeah, we need Pauline merch because across the board in what you've written for her role and how she portrays that role. Yeah, absolutely. And that goes, like I said, it goes for all the women. It does bring that sense of, okay, when everything goes to hell, like it is with the guys over there, it's the women that are making it all okay for everybody. And
just trying to make things better.
I love that. No, I love that. And I'm wondering, because I was wondering watching the movie, in the role, we say the women are the doctors, they are the nurse, and Jimmy Diaz finds himself in their hospital with the detectives coming after him. And I was wondering in that moment, if that doctor was a guy, would the response have been the same? In the sense that the female doctors were very protective and very running that barrier, that guard. No, you're not going to get to him. No, you're not going to come in on your terms to my hospital and to my patient. And definitely protecting the patient rather than aligning with the male psyche of the detectives. Right. So I was wondering about that. That threw a total different vibe in the movie for me because I kept thinking, oh, that was a guy. Yeah.
I hadn't given that any thought. I had not given that any thought. And actually, just now when you brought it up, now when you brought it up, my brain went in a completely different direction when you said it. I actually thought when you mentioned it, I was like, wow, that is actually really interesting. If it's a male doctor, does the natural male psyche align with the men and then become justice driven as opposed to care driven? And that's actually a great question. I have no idea. I didn't think about that.
That's for the next movie. I love that. Justice driven versus care driven. I love that. I love that statement. That's another, there's another t-shirt up there for that. So when you were writing this storyline and envisioning it, because again, the brilliant brain, and then you're envisioning this playing out as you're writing it, what were you hoping for the audience to take away from the movie?
So that kind of goes a little bit back to the beginning where I was saying we originally set out to just make an action movie, and just like our natural dynamic as a team already is so encumbered and comfortable in this thriller, thought-provoking space that we just put action on top of that. But originally the script, like like I said, writing through it, I was being very intentional to say, okay, we want to keep the pacing fast, keep things action driven, keep things exciting. And then any chance I would get, I would be like, well, they're talking. Let me just sprinkle a little something here and see if people just catch that little thread of messaging. But after we saw it for the first time, when we sat back and watched it, and this, I don't think I said this earlier, but we finally put the whole movie together. We sat down as a team and watched it. We finished watching it. We loved it. We were great. And then about 20 minutes after celebrating like how much we loved it, someone, I don't remember exactly who it was, someone looked up and goes, we didn't make a generic action movie, guys. And then we all shouted, damn it, we failed.
No. Oh, that's brilliant.
So that's what,
so it evolved.
It evolved into a bigger story just through our natural process of making a film.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it became this organic process then.
Right.
Once you bring real people involved into the writing and they start acting it, the beauty of acting, right? The beauty of taking the role on in your own definition and your own experiences coming to play, and how it evolves into a deeper, complex story because of the people involved. Again, it takes a different tone when you're bringing the diversity in. It's a whole different movie if you bring the diversity in.
Having the powerhouse of Alicia, who plays Dr. Francis, but was also a producer and the primary casting director for the film, right? Who, without her, we probably wouldn't have gotten Louis Barrio, right? Little things that I'd love to know her thoughts on what she saw the first time she read the script, because even as I'm thinking about some of the things that she came to the table with immediately when we began pre-production, when we look back at where they ended up in the film, I'm like, oh no, those were heavy elements as to how we went from just generic action film to a little bit more depth to the story and less like shock value action.
When you're filming this, for anybody like myself, not familiar with the filmmaking process at all, and I talked about these scenes that get caught that just really strike the audience. I think they have really big effect. Is this something that people bring to the table? Do they participate in your crew saying, hey, it'd be really great if we shot this to come in between these scenes and let's fade out here? And is that a conversation happening between you, the director, and the crews? As it's happening.
For the way that I work, yes. But many people who work with me will tell you that I'm very different than a lot of their filmmaking experiences. The biggest, I think I said this on our last show, but like the biggest thing that got me into filmmaking is that communal piece of it, right? Like that feeling of we're all doing this together for this final thing to be complete. So because of that, I'm very big on everyone bringing something to the table. So the biggest area that I could like immediately give a simple example for anyone who's never even thought of making a movie is the actors, right? So when actors come to the table, I give them the script. And in most cases, I'm sure as many people would imagine, you would think the actors take the script, they learn the lines, they show up, they say the lines from the script. That's how we make our movie, which is true for the most part. There's a lot of people out there who are directors in that way. But when I give the script to the actors, I say, here is the script. What I want you to do is become the character, right? There's going to be times where what I wrote, once you've created your character and its new personality and all of this stuff that you've put into who the person is, as when you did your work as an actor, because I think I work with some incredible actors, you might change some of these lines because your character just doesn't talk like that. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Or what's something that happened in Burden, there's the chess scene, right? I'll call it the chess scene, even though they're really playing like a weird variation of Chinese checkers that we found on the
internet. I was trying to figure that out.
I don't even know. It came in a Chinese box in their hand. I don't know what we were playing. Whatever. But like that scene didn't even exist in the script, right? That whole
Oh,
scene does not even exist in the script. We were filming,
okay.
the two
Mm.
actors that are in it, they came over to me. They were like, hey, we were just chatting over on the side. We were talking about the movie and we were just addressing, like, we both came from the same place of like, when we were developing our characters, we created this backstory where there was already like a brotherly bond between us that we'd never see in the script, but it was there, which is how he's like, one of the Aries is how I'm so affected when
Yeah.
when something happens to him and when something happens to me, he's so affected because these
Yeah.
bonds that we didn't see in the script. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's amazing. And so they go, so if you're down for it and if there's time, we think this would be a really interesting scene if me and him are just hanging out, right? And we just get to see that brotherly bond for a second to just build a little bit more on the characters. And I was like, okay, let me think about it for a second, but I like where it's going. Come up with something and we'll see where it goes. So they,
Yeah.
they disappeared. We continued throughout the day filming. Later,
Yeah.
towards the end of the night, we were about to wrap. They come over. There's a little bit of extra time. If you're down for it, we think it'd be cool. They express, I'm like, can't really think of a way. And then I glance over and I see the TV out the corner of my eye. I go, oh, we still have stuff that has to be said through the TV screen. Yeah, we need this. And that's when we made that scene happen.
Okay. Okay.
So the scene didn't exist
Yeah.
at all, but
That's
it just clicked
crazy.
for me that we still had one more piece of content that we were just going to play through a car radio in a different scene. I was like, but it actually, this dynamic you're talking about makes way more
Yeah.
sense. And it
Yeah.
creates a double layered scene where if you're looking at the foreground of the scene, you're seeing a different
Yes.
part of the story than if you're looking at the background of the scene, which is the TV, which is also telling you a part of the story. So
Yes. I am loving the depth. Again, that is a difference where you get the vibe that throughout the film, the individuals are connected in a way that, like you say, you can't write into the script
right,
because it is so real. It is so natural. It doesn't feel like acting. And in fact, you really hope it will happen sometimes, like within the characters, that they are like that, because you can't go through this storyline and have these people not care about each other. It just doesn't make
right.
sense.
That's one of the things that stresses me out in action movies.
Oh,
Everyone in the
right?
action movie is just a plastic person. Like they exist
Right.
they exist as devices to move the story forward as opposed to being actual people. So you'll get introduced to a character
Yes.
for all of 5 minutes and you get one dynamic of who he is. Like he's a super loudmouth, brash person, blah, blah, blah. And his whole setup as a person is simply to show you this next character doesn't have the patience for nonsense because he shoots him very
Right.
quickly. And
Right.
that's not super interesting to me. It actually makes it look like it's a bunch of maniacs in this movie.
But that's what I'm saying. I really feel that comes from the cultura. I really feel it comes from the point of view of a Latino who's used to comunidad, who's used to people on the bus coming and joking with him, a guy he hasn't seen in 30 years. And there's always a people connection versus what we see from Hollywood is a mirror of our society where people don't care about each other, where
Right.
people are expendable, where they are ground into the floor in their corporate world because they're just a cog. But in the diverse arts of art and film and book and song, even people working, you get a Latinos working in a crew and they are singing love songs.
Mhm.
I just love that it's a natural sense of being.
It speaks so much to the culture, right? Because like we have the 2 UFC fighters on set and these guys are
Yes.
traveling the world all like every weekend they're traveling the world fighting people for a living. And
Right?
they're massive beings
Mm.
and they're on set and they're some of the nicest people. And like they're sitting or one of the days we're shooting and we used my house as as base camp for lunch and everything. So these guys are in the house and everybody's just laughing and talking up a storm and they're answering these questions about fights.
Yeah.
And then they get into talking about other sports and other things that they all enjoy. And
Yeah.
that really was like, for me, a very big moment, right? This is what is the most exciting part for me is look at all of these different people who have different interests and different loves. And what we share is the idea of we like creating stories and everybody's just here having a good time, eating and just
Yeah.
hanging out. And no one's
Yeah.
stressed out or angry and again, that's a real feeling of these guys are so much like us, right? Yeah, like Rico Hundo has almost 500,000 followers on Instagram, and he's sitting with us with actors who have less than 200 followers. And we're just all hanging out, right? No one's overly
Yes.
egotistical, or nobody's here with their agent, or they need to be sat in a different area so that they're not disturbed. Everybody's just hanging out. And I think a lot of that culture and comfort that we created as a crew and as a just a film family on set lends itself to the dynamic that you see on screen, right? When you have these people who are just hanging out and then they go on screen to play people who just hang out, it really works.
That's 1,000%. Definitely. It's the vibe. I really appreciated that I could focus on the story and that everyone mattered. And you took a moment. There was always a moment to make sure that we understood that everyone mattered in the dialogue. Because there's so many ins and outs, and you're like, wait a minute, who's this guy? And you tell us. It's, oh, no, you're not. Oh, and we get attached. In that instant,
and then you get
we
attached.
get attached. We get attached. And it's like, oh, no. I was like, oh, no. It was so well done, and I didn't see it coming. And then even halfway through the movie, I was like, okay, I get it. I get where he's going. And then the end. Nope, didn't see it coming. And I just really, I swear, I'm just going to sponsor every single Latina filmmaker out there because they just vibe with me. I get it. I love this. I love the love of people. And I love the reality of showing people in their natural experiences with their natural being and their natural personalities coming to the film, removing our biased stereotypes of what that person should be and removing the ego, not allowing it for it to come into the filmmaking crew because it would, you as a director are managing that so that you keep the community in your film crew. It just really works, Vega. It really works. And amazing. Just congratulations on
Thank you.
The full scope. I get it now. I do get it. And it's the beauty of being able to have these films come into our easily accessible streaming platforms of Prime Video, which is happening tomorrow, and taking this beautiful, I'm going to call it a love story, and everyone's going to get the first 3 minutes and go, what the F are you talking about?
What
This is
love
not
story?
a love story. I'm like, wait for it. Wait for it.
It's going to hit you.
Wait 1 hour and 51 minutes.
I'm really excited that you cried. It's such a great feeling because like even so one of the biggest parts of the love story element of it is that's the part of the film that I kept from everybody involved with the film too. So the only person that was part of the film that knew about that element was Jimmy, Steven Stan Fernandez playing Jimmy. Even Ashley wasn't fully aware of the depth of
chills.
the depth of what the romance was. So I think that they did such an amazing job performance wise that it really sells it. And I think by the time people hear this, they'll have watched it. If they get this far, I'll say spoiler alert, right? So with the romance element, it's the idea of every film has the damsel in distress or the hero's girl, right? The person who just is just in there to be the pretty face, right? And I wanted to that's why when you say, I know where this is going, I love that feeling because that's what I wanted to happen. I wanted you to get so comfortable with certain parts of action that when we pull that extra layer out on it, it's whoa.
The head snap was real. The left, look to the left, look to the right. Wait, what? Yes. Yeah. And for it to really be, I'm not, and there's too many spoiler alerts.
I know that's been the hardest part of promoting it is that from the beginning to the end, it's a twist. So you can't really.
It is, even in the criminal aspect. It's, wait, were we supposed to have picked that up along the way? Wait, this is what's going down. Oh, yeah, I can't, I'm going to blubber on and on about it, but I
hope everyone does, so we get to keep making more.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so speak to it. Let's speak to how do people access it? What is important for you in them accessing the movie, watching the movie, giving reviews? What do you need the audience to do to really support you in this movie and the film crew?
Yeah, there's two simple steps to help us out tremendously. These really help out in exorbitant ways. It's crazy. It's watching the movie and then leaving a review. It doesn't even have to be a long review or anything. It's just, even if you just click the amount of stars you think it's worth, like every one of those reviews, better or like whether it's good or bad, goes into the algorithm as something people are engaging with. So that helps to move the film further higher into the spotlight places on Amazon Prime so that more people can see it. And then on the flip side of that, those same numbers and statistics is what we go to investors with and say, hey, there's an opportunity for you to still make money making movies without having to make movies that, people would consider generic or consider cash grabs, right? Like there's tons of movies that we could think of where it's just like, you only made that movie in the hopes of making millions of dollars.
100%,
And I like to go to investors and say, hey, we can make a movie that'll still make millions of dollars, but also have some sort of like connective message to it, right? So that it's not just driving sales again because of shock value, right? Like that's one thing that I'm really trying to push against the grain in Hollywood on the investor side, because a lot of the investment process is you go to an investor with a film idea and they're like, cool, who's attached, right? Like, who is the big name that you have attached to this? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of Latino big names that they want to invest in. So now I have to pick someone that is not like us. And now we're already being forced into these spaces that limit us from being able to do things. Even if it takes another 20 years, we're just going to keep at it the way we're going and have fun.
That's beautiful. And it brings up a really powerful point that we need to keep considering. And more power to you for doing it your way and refusing to be boxed into a system that is expecting you to bring them what they want. More power to you for sharing the stories that are relevant and particular to our point of view, and therefore they're humane to us. They make more sense, and the value of not contributing to just more money. That's not what this is about. Is not about making money. It's about telling these stories and allowing the expression of these stories to come out organically. And as filmmakers, it is up to us. The audience, we have to do our part in seeking out these films, making our voices heard, that we want these films out on streaming platforms, out on the big screen, asking people to create the spaces where these movies can be seen for the general public.
Elvis Nolasco, an incredible Dominican actor from Washington Heights, has a new movie on Hulu called Mr. Crockett, and it's a horror movie. And they did a really good job of promoting that film as far as because it was part of the Huluween and the whole Halloween marketing and everything, because it's a scary movie. And I think it's a fantastically done movie. But what's the next time that we'll get something like that, right? Does it have to be thematic for us to be able to get a spotlight? Do we have to make a holiday movie in order for you to spotlight a thing we do as part of that? Or can we just make a movie that you enjoy and get the spotlight on it? Those are the different elements that we're really looking to push against. And again, that actor element of it. There are tons of actors that I love and I think they're absolutely amazing and I want to work with them. But if we don't have the budget for those, that shouldn't mean we can't make a movie at all, right? I shouldn't have to be in a space where every movie is going to cost me $1 million to $3 million simply because XYZ actors are absolutely necessary. That's a crazy way to run a business. Like instead, I'll take my chances on people who are in the position these people you idolize were in just a decade ago, just a couple years ago. So we've become way too committed as an industry to pre-sailing, the idea of pre-sailing to an audience rather than making something and getting people's attention because you're making it.
What kind of grassroots effort can we create so that these movies are readily seen, like readily available on a much smaller scale in your local communities?
It's a great question that we're still really trying to figure out because the tangent of that point was grassroots doesn't really exist for a lot of things anymore because it can't, right? Like no matter how much grassroots work we do, the way the general public consumes film is not grassroots.
Wouldn't it be great though, if, and again, fitting with the cultura, that we created these parties, basically parties like we love, and we love gathering in person, and we love it being with good food and good beverages. So we're not drinking Diet Coke and popcorn. We're watching this movie all together as a community and allowing the emotions to just play out, and then giving time afterwards to talk about it while you're dancing.
That's what we did. That's what we did a little bit of at the premiere last November when we had the big in-person screening. And it was a lot of that. It was watch the movie and then we're just going to go party like we would on any Saturday. And it was a lot of that refreshing energy, but then it still goes to the same issue as far as the expansion of the opportunity, right? Because now all these people saw it in person. When they go home and tell their friends about it, where can their friend watch it? Now their friend has to get in touch with us to find a way to watch it. And it becomes a task for the audience. Right? And I think that I've always been very cognizant of, if you want to build an audience, you have to do all the work for them, right?
I think give more power to the audience out here, creating those spaces for you and inviting you into their spaces, because I think we're all craving that. We do not want to be inside our homes 24/7, necessarily watching movies on the laptops, on the screens. And we want to be out in person. We don't want to be $30 a ticket for a popcorn experience, but we would contribute to a private individual filmmaker and be part of something bigger. I think that's where a lot of maybe the audience would be excited to be part of a different movie experience. We want to change the movie experience, and we want it to feel more, like you say, this is just us sitting at the table. Hey, we're all sitting at the table. We're enjoying our food and beverages that are not what comes out of your typical movie theater. And we're all just hanging out and watching this film together and having a chance to talk about it. I really think that that
would be an amazing experience.
Give us the power to take that on. We can do that. Yes, we can do that. This is launching tomorrow on Prime, The Burden of 9 Lives. And we are also going to have the actresses in the film in another episode. So we get the other side of the movie and the deep dive. And I'm really excited for that.
I get to hear what they think of working with me.
Vega, you're a beautiful person. Embrace yourself. Yeah, we're really excited for that.
We submitted to, I think it was 39 festivals. We were selected to, I think, somewhere between, don't quote me on this, I haven't looked at it, but I think we were selected to somewhere between 18 and 20, and we won 12.
Wow.
So
that says everything.
Pretty good.
You did very well. And very eclectic awards. I was reading through the awards.
One of my favorite things is that
breadth of the movie.
Exactly.
Right.
We got a lot of team awards, right? Ashley won Best Actress. Steve won Best Actor. Rico won Best Supporting Actor. Our incredible makeup artist, Picasso, won Best FX Makeup. Kim won Best Cinematography. So it was so much deeper than just the film won, because we also had so many people get individual highlights for the film.
Exactly.
Right? It's like we have an incredible team of just really great people working.
Yeah, that was the beauty of it. And I have to say, the one thing I would love to see more, and again, I don't know how this works, but in going to the IMDb on the website, I wanted to know more about each individual actor. Please have them flesh out their bios. Yeah, please have them flesh out their bios. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I was wanting to know like their background. I wanted to know their heritage. I wanted to know their story, their journey. And we do want Pauline merch. I'm going to make it myself. I want Pauline. I'm just going to have it across and see if anyone will recognize it. Pauline. Tribe. She's my tribe.
It's been amazing. It's such a breath of gratitude that I feel every time I get to hear someone talk about their experience with the film. That's really the most exciting part.
If you build it, they will come.
Actually, it's really relieving, and it feels great, especially for all the work we do as a team. I know how much everybody appreciates it, so it means a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's such a pleasure having you on again and catching up and really highlighting this film that we talked about last year.
Thank you.
Really proud of you. Keep believing in what you're doing. Yes. You talk about your website. What is your website?
My personal website is whatupvega.com. That's where you can go and see all of the cool stuff that I'm up to. I try to update my blog on there pretty frequently so that it's like what's happening recently. And then if you want to just see the movie, you can go to theburdenofnine.com. And that's where you get a ton of info about the film, some cool screenshots. And then you can also click right on there to watch it, and it'll bring you to the Amazon Prime page. So.
Oh, awesome. Okay, that would be good background. Congratulations, Vega. Congratulations on everything you've done in bringing your true, authentic self into your storylines, into your filmmaking process, into presenting the movies and not literally buying into only making the money story. So really, congratulations. Keep making them, and we can't wait to have you on next year with the next movie, right?
With
the next
the Dominican comedy that I'm making, so be ready for that. That's
right, the Dominican comedy. Yes, we wanted Ring of Color Cosmetics to be on that beach with the women.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay,
so.
we're gonna have some behind the scenes talking. Oh, thank you so much, Vega. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having a platform for us. Like you said, there's not a lot of spaces that give opportunity to the people who look like us to talk candidly about the things we're working on. So we really appreciate it.
Great. Yes, we'll hear for you.
That was fun. Yay.
It's always fun with you. Vega Montañez, Dominican heritage, Afro-Latina filmmaker, writer and producer of The Burden of 9 Lives, now airing on Prime Video. Such an impactful voice in the industry and bringing to light the power of diversity in film. Because when we think about diversity, we often think of representation both on the screen and behind the camera, to be seen for who we are, rather than the Hollywood stereotype of Latino and Hispanic characters. We think about telling our own stories, ones of everyday life that aren't hyped up on Hollywood's ignorance of Latino life, our inside jokes, our way of living, what makes us truly unique. But how often do we think about our actual voice, our way of telling stories, of caring for each other, and viewing the world completely differently? Our voice is our power, and our authenticity is our superpower. Use it in every moment of your life, out loud and proud, to share the story, not scripted, for what you're accustomed to hearing, accustomed to seeing, and filling expectations for a system that didn't include you when it was written. So join us next week when 2 of the actresses from the movie join us to share their insights on the film, the power within their roles, and the thrill of being on the big screen. Ashley Rose Nicholas, who plays Paulina, and Alicia Wright, who plays Dr. Frances, double down on what it's like to be women of color in the film industry that rarely provides roles that literally flip the script on how women are viewed in America. Continue to act on whatever you need today for as long as you need it. Reach out to people that just get you. And as always, step into your truth, ladies. Ciao. We love that you have subscribed to this podcast and continue to champion women who understand the life of all things Latina. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Encuentra Your Voice podcast so you don't miss a single episode. They will automatically drop into your listening device each week. And we'd really, really appreciate if you take a moment to add to the reviews that we already have. Tell us what you like, tell us what you're hoping to hear, and we will get there. Share this with your friends and family to help us grow our comunidad, and keep following us on our social media. Encuentra Your Voice. We are so grateful to you for helping us grow this community and would love to learn of all the amazing Latinas who you know are creating the world we thrive in. So reach out to me on social media at Encuentra Your Voice And let's keep leaning into our authenticity in pride. Help us make Encuentra's Your Voice the place where you are 100% represented.